All I'm saying is don't let your bank account be empty because that's tacky. Especially if you out here and you got kids and your bank account is empty, tacky. Tacky. We're not doing it. So let's figure it out. Today, we're going to get back to the core of what we do on this channel. We budget. We literally budget, right? And we haven't talked about budgets in a while, but we're going to revisit them today. And I know that budgeting is a dirty word, or it definitely comes with negative connotations, but we're going to say it today. We are going to say budget today. We're going to say budget, we're going to say budgeting, we're going to say it's a budget. We're going to budget today. Okay? And I know that people have these fancy names for them, like spending plan or a conscious spending plan or whatever it is that you want to call it. But in reality, it really is what it is. And it is a budget, right? Does that scare you? Budget. When I say it, how does that make you feel? We have to budget because if we don't, we cannot spend wisely, save, invest, or reach our money goals without it, right? If you're doing all of these things, saving, investing, and reaching your money goals successfully, then you're doing some type of budgeting. You are doing some type of budgeting. So we're going to get back to the foundation, the core of what we do on this channel. We have to budget because without that, where can you go? Where are you headed without a budget? So I'm going to get a little bit of help from myself. I'm going to drop in some clips from my earlier days on YouTube, and they're going to help us work through our budget, the foundations of everything, right? They're going to help us work through our budget, and we're going to talk about the clips, and we're going to talk about how to turn your budget into a masterpiece so that it can get you to where you ultimately want to be. Hi, budgeters. So, step one is calculating all income. So, all of the income that you have coming in. I mean, your 9 to 5 pay, your hustle money, the money that you get from your boo, the child tax credits, stimulus, every single bit of it. You should know down to the penny how much you have coming in. Okay? And sometimes it changes month to month. So you'll just have to alter the numbers each month, and that's fine. So place all of this income under the income section of the free budget sheet, and you'll get the sum. Okay? You don't have to worry about calculating anything, it'll calculate it for you. So again, your homework is to calculate all of your income. Step one. Okay, so on that video, I talked about knowing your number. How much money do you have coming in each month, right? If you don't know how much money you have coming in, you won't you won't know how much money you have going out. And you need to know all of that. So, calculate all the money that you have. Listen, you have to know, you have to look at those numbers. I know some of us are so scared to look in our bank account to see how much money we have coming in from our 9 to 5s or from different areas, other aspects, wherever you have money coming in from. People don't want to look, but you have to because you have to have that starting point. You have to have that jumping off point, right? Like, how are you going to know how much you can spend if you don't even know how much you have? You have to know that. And listen, that's the start. Point blank, period. That is the start. And if you are realizing that you don't like the number that you see coming in, like it's not enough for you, then the question becomes, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? You have to make more money. you have to go out there and maybe improve upon your skills. Take a class or two. I'm not saying go back to school and get 50 degrees. What I'm saying is do what you need to do to increase your income if you can't stand to look at the number that's coming in, right? Some of us are doing different things like making dinners, refurbishing furniture. We're selling the different things that we have in our house. I've done all of that. I've done all of that in order to increase my income because there was a point where I was looking at my income and I was like, listen, this is not enough, or this is not where I want to be, right? In terms of how much I have coming in. And so I did a number of different things in order to get more money coming in. And I still do it from time to time now, depending upon what my goals are, how I'm feeling. And so, listen, if you don't like something about you, you need to change that about yourself. And if you don't like to look at the number that you have coming in, you have to fix that. It's up to you. Nobody else. Listen, you have to fix what you don't like about you. Budgeters, let's continue building your budget. Step two, know your expenses. You need to know exactly what you're paying for. Some of you have all of your expenses coming out automatically. Some of you have some automatic payments and some paper payments, right? Either way, do you know your exact expense amount each month? Well, if not, today is the day that you find out. Collect all paper and electronic bill statements. That includes your mortgage, your rent, your utilities, tuition, subscriptions like Amazon, Netflix, Hulu, and all debt. Student loans, credit cards, etc. Right? So list them out under the expense section of your free budget sheet, and it will give you the amount that you owe each month. Now, if that number exceeds 50% of your take home pay, it's too high for you. It's too high. And you need to go back to determine what you can cut out, do without, or aggressively pay down. And this is going to be the hard part that you may need a budget coach for. And I am available. So once you've taken all of your expenses, right, and you've laid them out line by line, mortgage, how much, rent, how much, water, how much, trash, if you have to pay for that, how much. After you've taken all of those things and then you've added them together, then you need to determine what percent of your income it takes up. If it takes up more than 50% of your income, then look back and maybe start slashing some things. Are there any things, is there anything on your budget that you can start taking off the list? Meaning you can just automatically crisscross that off of your expense. Is there anything? Are there any subscriptions that you don't need that you're paying for each and every month? Is there this particular debt that you have that you could pay off rather quickly within the next couple of months because maybe you have tax income check coming back? What is it that you can do in order to get your expenses under 50%? Or what can you do in order to make sure that they are not taking over your entire income? Now, I know that I've been talking about the 50-30-20 budget, and that is the rule that most people live by, right? That your expenses should not exceed 50% of your income. But let's be realistic, right? We are living in some tough times. We are living in times when, listen, these prices be crazy, right? Crazy. And so as a result, we might not even be able to live within that 50%. And that's fine, right? Maybe you are living at 60, 65%, 70%, which is high. The goal is to try to get down as far as you can because you don't want your expenses taking up every single thing that you have coming in. So try to slash that. And I'm going to be honest, right now, I'm not at 50%, right? I used to be back then, when you saw that video back then, way back then, right? But now I've acquired a new mortgage and my expenses are above that. But guess what? I am working each and every day to cut things out, to slim my expenses down to get to a place where I'm under 50%. Now, I don't even want to be at 25% my income, right? And I'm working on that by cutting this mortgage out because I'm already done with this mortgage. But listen, the goal is to get it down to as low as you possibly can. I'm not a hypocrite. So what I'm going to say is I'm not at 50% right now. But I'm gonna tell you something. That's the ultimate goal, right? Right. So I'm not going to tell you to be at making sure that your expenses, or not making sure, but to have your expenses at 80% of your income, because that is setting you up for failure. I'm not even going to say that that's okay to do that, right? I'm going to say that no, myself, I'm not at 50% right now, but I'm working towards it. And so the question becomes, what can we all do to drive our expenses below 50%? And if you're comfortably living with your expenses at 65%, then listen, do that. If you're comfortable living with your expenses at 70%, listen, then do that. But I honestly wouldn't say go higher than 70 if you can, right? We won't don't want to be over 70% of our income for um for our expenses, or in terms of our expenses, that we don't want our expenses taking up 70% of our income or above. The goal is to drive it down as low as you can. If you can get it to under 50, perfect. If you can't, maybe you'll keep working on it. If you feel comfortable at the place that you are, listen, be comfortable at the place that you are. But what I'm going to say is that if you can't save, then I wouldn't be comfortable at that space. If you can't save anything, I would not be comfortable at that space, right? And so we got to do what's best for us, but let's just make sure that it makes sense and that it's logical. Hi, budgeters. On to step 3 of building your budget. So, this is the good part. You need to save for yourself. You need to treat your savings like a bill. So, what's 20% of your income? That's right, what's 20% of your income? Take that number and divide it among the categories that make sense for you. Maybe you want to invest in a Roth IRA, or maybe you're buying a house soon. Those can be some of the categories for what you save. However, if you do not have a 6-month emergency fund, then I suggest you start there until you've reached that amount. If you don't know how to calculate that, then you can contact me. How much of your income are you saving? You have to save something. Now, I always talk about having an emergency fund, but that's not what this video is about. But you have to save something in order to begin to build up an emergency fund. Again, that's not what this video is about. So I'm not going to go on and on about an emergency fund. But you got to save something. Now, start where you can start. Okay? Start where you can start. And if you can start at 5% of your income, saving 5% of your income, that is perfect, right? In order to figure out what 5% of your income is, take your income, whatever that is coming in, times 0.05, right? And that's how you know how much you can save, or you should save. Treat your savings like a bill. I stated that in the other video, but listen, I'm going to echo it now. Because if you treat it like a bill, you'll make sure that you are indeed saving it. You have to. For yourself, you want to have a buffer between you and life. You don't want life to come smack you in the face because you have this unexpected bill and then you can't pay for it. That's not what we're doing. That is not what we're doing. We're too old for that. I, I, I'm too old for that. And so as a result, you have to have money set aside. Don't just have an empty savings account. Don't just have an empty bank account where all people do is come in and take that money, meaning your bills, right? They come in and take all your money and you ain't got nothing left. That's foolishness at this point in life. That is total foolishness. So start somewhere. Start somewhere. If you want to start at 5, start at 5. If you want to start at 10, start at 10. In the video that you listened to, I talked about 20%, right? Because listen, the 50-30-20 budget, it is all about keeping your expenses within that um range or within that target, so to speak. But sometimes you might not be able to make it. Sometimes you're not there yet. And I'm here for those people who are there, but I'm also here for those people who are not there yet and who are working themselves up to that space or to that place. Listen, we're not all there yet. I know there are many places in my life or many aspects of my life where I'm not there yet, but I know that I'm headed in that direction. And I want you to also be headed into that direction. So you got to save something. If it's not 5%, make it 3%. Again, take your income, multiply it by 0.03. If it's not 3%, save 1%. Listen, start at 1. Start at 1. Start at 1. And then maybe go to 2, and then maybe go to 3. All I'm saying is don't let your bank account be empty because that's tacky. Especially if you out here and you got kids and your bank account is empty, tacky. Tacky. We're not doing it. So let's figure it out. Start somewhere. Can do it. Budgeters, we are at the final step of building your budget, knowing how much you have for free spending. So hopefully at this point, your free budget sheet is complete. And if so, you'll have a free spending amount at the bottom. And it should be 30% of your take home pay. And this is the money that you go out to eat with, you get your hair done with, your nails done, etc., etc. Now, remember that when building your budget, none of the percentages are set in stone. 50% for expenses, 20% for saving, 30% for free spending. You can alter them to do what makes sense for you. Now, the last part of this is about your free spending amount, right? And in the video, it states that your free spending amount can be 30% because that's the 50-30-20 budget. 50% is of expenses, 30% is for spending, and 20% is for saving, right? That's the 50-30-20 budget. But this whole time, we've been talking about if you can't reach those specific targets, then do something else, right? Like, for instance, 30% is a lot. There's a lot of your income to freely spend. But I know people need 30% because if you know that you have this big pocket of money to spend as you will, or to freely spend, or to use it on the things that you want to use it on, then you're more likely to actually save, right? Because we find that when we don't have when we don't have money to spend, then we definitely won't save, right? Right. You have to. You have to make sure that you feel like you're not depriving yourself and that you have money to spend. Now, as for me, I don't freely spend 30% of my income. I'm not. I don't freely spend 30% of my income. And the reason being is because I save 25% of my income. So let's say my expenses are at 60%, which is probably where they are, about 60%. So if my expenses are at 60%, I'm saving 25%, and I always save that 25%. So my free spending amount is about 15. But the moral of the story is you have to figure out what works for you. There are all of these budgets out here in these streets, right? They got all these budgets out here: 50, 30, 20, 60, 20, 20, 70, 15, 15. You can go on and on and on and on. But the question becomes, what works for you? Right? And so we've been bending the rules on this video for 50, 30, 20 because before in life, I could do the 50, 30, 20, but I ain't at that place no more. I'm not at that place no more because I went and I got myself a new build, a new home, right? And a, a new mortgage to match. And with that being stated, I'm not in that place anymore where I can just save endless amounts of money, right? Before I was way below 50% in terms of my expenses. My expenses were probably 30% of that. I was saving 50% of my income. But that ain't life no more. That ain't life no more. And so we have to make it so that we're fitting our life now, our budget fits our life now, and that our um just budget fits who we are at this point. And right now at this point, I can't save 50% of my income. And it's okay. But the question becomes, how can I budget in order to maximize the money that I have coming in so that I can save and invest wisely? That's what it becomes, right? And you have to determine what that is for you. You have to say, okay, I'm not at 50% in terms of my expenses. My expenses are over 50% of my income. And if I didn't say it before, in order to figure that out, how much money you should actually be spending on your expenses, then you can do your income times zero point 0.5. Your income times zero point 0.5 will give you half of your income. And then you can use that to determine like a ballpark of how much you should be spending on your expenses. Okay. So that was a side note. But what I'm saying to you is life, man, life be life, and life is something different. And it changes over time. So what are you going to do to make sure that your budget changes with you so that you can still be maximizing the money that you have coming in, right? You can't get to a changing point in your life and you just be like, oh, forget it, oh, whatever. No, you get to the changing point in your life and you change with life. You change with it. Your budget's going to change with it, right? And so we got to do what we know to do at that time. And if we don't fit within the standard, or if we don't fit within the rule, then we got to bend it a little bit to make it best for us. So that's what we're doing right now. We're taking the 50, 30, 20 budget, we ripping it up, and we're making it what we need it to be. Okay? So let's make it what we need it to be for us. Got that?